AM 970 WSTX.
It's time for In Session, the talk show that covers the flip side of our cultural, political, economical, and social affairs. Now let's join our host, Robert B. Moorhead, because the session is in.
Yes. It's Thursday morning, and morning to each and every one of you out there. It's a beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning here on the big island of St. Croix, here in America's Paradise. And you're listening to WSTX AM 970 on your radio dial. And of course, the numbers to call 773-0390, 773-0490. And you're in session with me, Robert Moorhead. Of course, we were waiting for our guest, and I am not sure what the situation is, but in the meantime, we will continue to conduct. We will continue to conduct, and the song that you were hearing before is "Breezing." It's by George Benson. And actually, that's the reason behind that song goes way, way back. But anyway, yesterday we were discussing some of the variations or issues. Fuzz. Oh, okay, my guest has arrived. If you guys would do me the honors and give me just one quick second, we're going to go back to that same music. My guest has arrived, so I want to make sure I grab him. So if you give me just 2 minutes, we're going to be right back with you. Gee, thanks. yes. And thank you. Yes, all of you that have been tuning in. All right, we're settled back in here. And of course, our guest has arrived as promised, so that we can finish off or culminate with the discussion that we've had over the past 4 or 5 weeks. Now, as we get to the ending of it and the culmination of it, I have invited my uncle to come and discuss with us 2 particular subject matters. One, the reapportionment, and the second one, to go into a clearer definition and explanation as regarding the one man, one vote. So, with that being said, I would first like to welcome my Uncle Mario, beloved, to the studio.
And a good morning to you, Robert. And it was very kind of you to have me on your radio station and your program to your audience. And I am delighted to be here. So thank you and good morning, one and all.
Thank you. Okay, let's, for the sake of time, because I know that the call portions are going to come the first hour or so, we're not going to really be taking any calls because I want to be able to give you enough time to clearly explain and respond to any questions that may arise. First off, the discussion is reapportionment. What is it, and how would you define it, or how is it defined?
Mm-hmm. Well, the word reapportionment is nothing more than the definitive structure for a body, how it is apportioned. And in a deliberative body, like a law-making body, it's a legislature, it is critical because you want to ensure that deliberation takes place in a deliberative body. As in a courtroom, you've got to have deliberation. They will call it collusion if there is no opposition in court.
Okay.
I think somebody would be a plaintiff claiming or charging something, and somebody or something will be a defendant saying, no, nothing to go so. Not me. Well, this is why the apportionment is critical, because otherwise there is nothing to resolve and there's no reason for resolution. It would be tantamount to having a coin and both sides being the same, and you're going to flip this coin and ask me which side I want to speak first or last. There's nothing to resolve. Well, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the apportionment of a deliberative body like a legislature. The structure must be conducive to deliberation and the resolution of issues.
Okay, it is stated by proponents that at present there is deliberation, there is balance. So why would the reapportionment be important?
Well, if there was deliberation and if there was a balance, there would be accountability. And as in the normal, orthodox, deliberative body, you will always be able to identify the parties and jurors said, well, yes, he said that he was guilty, but the rest of us didn't agree. We said he was innocent. Now, in the Virgin Islands, we operate like a jury system.
Explain.
Because we do not have any kind of ideological distinction between the representatives. There is no party that stands for guilty There's no party that stands for innocent. Wherever else you go, whatever the issue, if it's abortion, well, the Democrats stand for this. The Republicans stand for that. Now, whatever resolves and whatever issue comes up dealing with abortion, you would expect that the parties belonging to the affirmative side would be there. I would say, we flip-flop.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a Republican.
Yeah.
How are you talking about free choice now? But in the Virgin Islands, you see, we do not have the distinctions like a jury system.
Okay.
You want to go in clean. So beforehand, don't ask me if I think he's guilty or innocent. I want to hear the facts, then I gonna make up my mind. So, well, there's no ideology. No, I don't want no ideology in here. Why you come in with a clean slate? But that's the distinction between a jury, for instance, and a legislature, which has to represent people, meaning it must have ideology. There must be some ideological substance as to why the people identify with you as a political entity called the party. Whether it's the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the ICM Party, or I just chopped my hand and signed there with none of you. There is no party. And this is the difference. And like I said, if you have a coin with no sides, you could flip it all you want. And both of us are going to win every time.
So it is the portion here with regards to the opposition. Based on belief. Liberals believe one particular way. Apparently conservatives believe a different way. And then there are those that don't believe either conservative or liberal. And to me, I don't see... Well, locally, you would include the ICMs because it's a valid party. But under the American flag, it's a two-party system. So the non-party affiliations are just saying that they don't believe the same principles of whether conservative or liberal.
That is true, but again, just for the sake of clarity, used to speak it to my beloved audience, and I don't like to confuse them, and the way how you spoke, I think you didn't make any distinction between national and local politics. And see, there are dozens of political parties in the United States. None of them have had the political maturity to actually be a performer on the national political scene, with Democrats and Republicans. But you have Green Party, you have Libertarians, all kind of political parties throughout the 50 states.
Okay.
But the fact is that they have ideological substance. They are identifiable by their ideology. Here, there is no such thing. We are ideological on paper, but then you present an issue and you say, well, okay, now you the Democrat, you the Republican, you the ICM, could you give me your position on this issue? And that's when you begin to realize, well, this coin has the same side. There's no obverse or converse
to it.
And that's the whole point. When you flip the two-sided coin, there's continual resolution. The coin is resolving itself as to how it is going to end up. What is that synthesis? What is that conclusion? And it finally settled and it said, hey, it's head. You win for sure. You really win. You know, but there was continual resolution.
Okay.
And because there is no check and balance, there is no need for resolution in the first place, much less any negotiation to compromise on this or that, because this is a controversial issue. There is no such thing taking place in the Virgin Islands. There is no need for resolution. What are you going to resolve? The coin doesn't have but one side.
Yeah.
There's no opposition. So you could throw it up in the air, you could do whatever you want, you could write up whatever pieces, you could have a white paper and this and that and the other. But as soon as the issue enters the room, you find out that, well, the ideology left out the window.
But now, okay, before we go further, in speaking on the ideology,
Yeah.
how then does the reapportionment develop that ideology to give a check and balance? Or does it?
Not. It does not. It's the other way around. It's historical materialism. It is the mere fact that you have check and balance that requires for like minds to bond, to be able to defeat the check and balance. Like minds coming together because there are check and balances. Like, for instance, if we come in the real terms in the Virgin Islands, if we had a check and balance between the at-large representatives and the district representatives, there would be a need for like minds to come together. Because if the law says that to be able to pass this bill, you must have 3 of the 6 at-large Senate votes, that means that those who are now in the district, if we're talking about the same 15-member body, there would be 9 of them there. It don't matter if all 9 of them go on the same side. They have to make peace with like minds in the at-large section to find 3 bodies that are going to agree with them.
From the district.
That's right, and that is why 6 at-large could check and balance 9 districts. Because the law which says you have to have 3 of the at-large with you. That is how you mimic a bicameral system. The House of Representatives, even there are 435 members against 100 in the Senate. They can't pass a bill on their own. The Senate has to go with this the check and balance. And so therefore you find like minds, whether liberals, conservatives, Tea Party, or whoever in the House, to seek out like magnets, trapped in iron from the Senate to go along with the House so that you can have then the ratification by the Congress, which is both bodies. But that's what the check and balance does. It forces resolution. Continual resolution must take place. Okay. But right now, there is absolutely no need for it because there is no distinction in the representation. Everybody represents the same thing. We have 15 senators, 14 of them saying they represent the people. But mind you, only 7 represent the people of St. Croix. 8 of them represent the people of St. Thomas, St. John. And then there's a 15th member. And he is the super person that represents the entire territory against those 14.
Yeah.
There's no check, there's no balance.
Not at that ratio.
Well, this is, and that's so there's no reason for ideology. There's absolutely no need to. You see, but it is the search for like minds to actually defeat the challenge posed by check and balance that creates the ideological unity.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because, hey, those in the district, if you, for instance, had your 7 senators in St. Croix who were district reduced to 4, just 4 district senators in St. Croix, and then you had the Board of Election divided St. Croix into 2 halves, and you said St. Croix East and St. Croix West. That's 4 district senators to 2 for St. Croix East, 2 for St. Croix West. If you did the same thing in St. Thomas, St. Croix, you just divided it up so that you have some kind of equal representation. Like in the United States, about 700,000 people are represented by one representative, something like that. But the fact is that because the people representing Frederickstead, for instance, the 2 successful representatives, they are going to have to find like minds, not just in Christianstead, in St. Croix East, but in St. Thomas West, St. Thomas East, and still they can't get anywhere because they have to now find common cause with at least half of their large senators. And this is the resolution. They give substance to the debates that leaves you so empty when you read the newspaper and the thing. You say, this again, the flip-flop again, but the man say he was going to, and you have no way of him foretelling because you have had no empirical knowledge of what are the mentalities of these people. So who are likely to be the like minds that would form the new political structure of the Virgin Islands? Because if you had check and balance, what you have today would go out the window as soon as the first bill hits the floor.
For clarification purposes, can we reapportion without congressional or the Department of Interior's approval?
No, we cannot. And that's why we're so fortunate, because the good St. Thomas politicians were actually able to foresee this, and they applied for authority and it was granted, and so yes, we have the authority to do it. Yes, we did it already.
Okay. And this was done in 1966?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the 1954 Revised Organic Act has St. John as a district. There are 15 senators proposed. I think it was 4 at large, and then they had, each district had representation. Now, the argument to get us to where we are today is the one man, one vote scenario. Can you explain or help to explain to my audience?
Well, we'll try, but first of all, let's remember that the actual language in the court case is one person, one vote.
Okay. One person, one
yes. My audience usually has both genders, and I like to represent them, and because they like to vote too.
See how you're going to get me in trouble here now?
I am trying to keep myself out of trouble.
Yeah,
I don't have your vitality. This is my nephew. He can stand up to them. Me, I have to power. Beg somebody to assist me. Geriatric abuse, please help me.
You see how you is? Yeah. That's all right, man. I'm going to take it. One person, one vote.
Yes. Well, actually, this developed in the early 60s.
Okay.
And again, to be as clear as I could possibly think how to be, I will give you a little background that over the decades, actually over the generations of the 20th century, what has happened is that the economy of the United States became less and less rural, less and less agricultural, and more industrial and urbanized. Okay. And that created a tremendous shift from what had been in the 18th century and the 19th century, when America really was formed, to the 20th century. And there were more and more challenges to this system up until the mid of the last century. Mm-hmm. So it's in the early 60s when the Supreme Court finally said, well, maybe it is time to get into the political thicket. That's the terminology that they used to use because of separation of powers. And it says, no, we can't touch that. That's their business, what they want to do. And actually, I gave Certiorari the cases dealing with the matter of the population shift. Because what had been happening is clearly the metropolitan areas, the cities, had become not just simply dominant in population, but in industrial output.
Okay.
This is where all the power had been, but the political power did not come with it. Because there had been no, what was the word? Reapportionment?
Yeah, okay. Yes.
I'm the one supposed to be slipping you. I'm senior abuse.
No. You see,
right. No. So that, the rural areas continue to have more representative per capita.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly so than the heavily populated cities, the industrial areas. And so this is what brought about the decision of one person, one vote, and the Supreme Court says, no, nothing to so you all got to reapportion this thing here so that you have a fair and balanced representation of, one person, one vote, and therefore everybody in the state having equal representation. And so what usually happened is that in many cities, when they began, they were just simply one district.
Okay.
And by the mid-century, the cities moved from being one district to some of them being a dozen districts. Because they were so populated, there were so many people in there, like New York City, 10 million people. So this is what happened to bring about the major controversy of one person, one vote, and it was very, very contentious. But what has happened over time, Robert, is that people, the lay politician, never realized that what was being contested here was the representation of the people of the United States. The people of the United States are represented in the House of Representatives. That is what it's called. Mm-hmm. Now then, that is democratically structured so that there is what we call fair and balanced representation. And right now, I think it's something like every 700,000 citizens deserve a representative in the House.
But not all states have 700,000 people in them.
Well, up to. If you have 7 in the state, you still get a representative.
So it's up to.
So
it's from 0 to up to 7, because the confusion in certain debates that I've had is that the states don't have the right to the representation because they don't have the amount 700,000 to require that. And my thing is, the Constitution says even if there was one person, they have the right to representation.
They must be represented. Okay. And this is the fallacy right there, that yes, because I'm not as populous as you doesn't mean that I shouldn't have representation. I still pay my income taxes on the exact same equation as you do.
So to say that St. John doesn't have sufficient persons to warrant its own representation,
that's not correct.
Okay, good.
That's not correct. It's like saying that, in the state of Wyoming, the state of Alaska, Rhode Island, any number of small states, because they don't have a population of 700,000 people, there should not be any representation in the House of Representatives, as if there are no people in that state.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like that. So you have to have at least one representative. But the distinction is that we're talking about the representatives of the people. Okay. And this is where we lose it. because here in the Virgin Islands, because we have neglected to represent the territory, we forget that the territory itself needs representation, which is what takes place in the states. There is nothing about one person, one vote when it comes to the United States Senate. It is one state, two votes, as opposed to one person, one vote. And so this here is part of the check and balance, because you must have the ability for a smaller number to still balance a larger number. And this is what happens so that the state can check the number of people within it. The state itself is allowed certain powers that the people must collectively overcome. And this is where the representative government comes on, which you must have some kind of unification if you are going to defeat the check and balance. And this is where the ideology of like minds comes in. You and I have the same interest in this thing, so that's all right. You run over my dog last week and you didn't even tell me a thing. But, but we're going to need each other for this vote here, because I read they're going to stop picking a while to garbage for all of us.
For all of us,
so, it's that kind of thing, and that is how the representative system works. It's not democracy. It's just representative government.
Well, democracy being a form of government itself.
It is for small communities, small organizations, because democracy, what we have to realize, Robert, it means that every person is vested, meaning that if the Virgin Islands was a democracy, every single person who is eligible to be an adult must be eligible to vote. Mm-hmm. And no law could pass without each one of those people having the opportunity to vote on it. It is direct. That's what democracy is, not representative.
It's majority.
No. It's no majority. Democracy means direct representation. You represent yourself.
But whatever the majority of selves determine is what would happen if the vote or the consideration is to
the result of
that decision is based on the majority votes.
That is, but again, I am hesitant, because until you lay down the rules as to what is a majority vote, I can't say. Like I suggested to you,
a unanimous
like
vote.
Check and balance is this. Yeah, where 6 senators should be able to check, 9 representatives, because you say, well, the 9 representatives can't do nothing unless 3 of the senators go along with them.
Okay, understood. Fair enough.
So you've got to define what is a majority.
Unanimous. By unanimous.
Yes, I've read enough to know about that there are kind of super and super majority, and simple majority, and so it depends on what you say the majority is. But yes, the difference is that just that in democracy, nobody represents me.
Yeah, I represent myself.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's why. So we're a republic.
That's why
representative government.
That's why we're getting in trouble here. Because anyway, that's a whole different show.
But it's not that complicated at all, really.
No. I'm gonna bring it forward a little bit because it was a question that was once posed, and I've had my own response to it. But corruption seems to be a result of the present system that we're utilizing. Would the reapportionment in particular end, reduce, maybe lessen corruption? And if it would, how?
Well, again, if we get back to the simplest version of the check and balance, like the coin.
Okay.
All right? Take a penny, take a quarter, whatever the coin is. I mean, it could just be a medallion. But it has two
the same
distinct
side.
sides. It's got two distinct sides.
Okay.
You know, well, again, you're making me lose my train of thought now. But the point is that I don't remember.
We were dealing with the coin. I was thinking
Why?
you were using the same example where the coin has the same side, so it's unfair. But you were saying the coin has two distinct sides to it. So there is a semblance of fairity. There is two distinct and opposing sides. Our
I
issue,
don't remember the question I was trying to respond to.
but based on corruption. I mean, would it?
That
would,
is what it was. Yes, that's what it was. Yes. Yes, because you're going to have two sides, the obverse and a converse, heads and tails. You have the need for resolution, which is another word for rivalry, another word for competition. I want to beat you. You want to beat me. I want to win. You want to win. You can't win unless I lose. I can't win unless you lose. And this here is the very fundamental platform that is antagonistic to corruption. Because I am not going to stand by knowing that you cheated, and as a result, I'm losing. But now I'm willing to stand by. I'll watch you cheat because we are together, you and I, and so whatever you win, I get a piece of the action too. We don't have any check and balance. I don't have no reason to fight you, especially when you getting, what you said, $10,000 in the envelope?
yeah.
The small bills? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I like that one.
Well, it's as simple as that. You know, you have to have the check and balance to keep power from actually coalescing against you. They're supposed to be representing you.
Yeah.
So you got to put them in